Everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Black-Liberation.Tech Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Renee Jordan, and today we are going to continue on our lesson from last week. So let's just go ahead and get started. So let's head over to the Black-Liberation.Tech website. All right, so we're here at the Black-Liberation.Tech website. Please keep in mind it is available in both English and Spanish. We will head over to lessons and scroll down to where we left off in interactions. Once again, interactions represents the different ways of demonstrating digital literacies, and we were on lesson D 2.1, Embracing Digital Literacies. We've read through the 4 different stories. We've already gone through the reflect and write questions for connect, promotion, publicizing, and now we are at streaming. So let's go ahead and give those questions a read for streaming. So I'm doing a think aloud, so you can think about your response as I answer aloud. And perhaps you have something in common, maybe it's completely different. Maybe you have something that you didn't realize was an actual way of demonstrating digital literacies when we're talking about the ways in which you can stream. Once again, we are working on a lesson where I am preparing a professional project, and my professional project will be a social media campaign. So let's go ahead and get started with the reflect and write questions for streaming. How do you use streaming, example, live streaming, sharing videos, for personal or professional purposes? So since I'm talking about a professional project, I'll start off with professional. So to start, when we're talking about streaming, I do live streaming for workshops whenever I'm facilitating a workshop online. It allows me to engage with participants in order to answer their questions based upon whatever content we're covering in terms of learning. And most recently, those workshops have involved prompt engineering. And so streaming is a way that I'm able to deliver a workshop or facilitate a workshop. I'm able to engage with the audience, whether they decide to use the chat or if they decide to use their microphones and ask their questions that way, as well as share their experiences. In terms of personal use, I use streaming on a regular basis to connect with friends and family. So whether that's FaceTime, or sending them a video of what's happening, or even a voice note of what's going on to keep them updated. So I use streaming in a personal way to update people on what's happening in my life and to find out what's going on in theirs. And then as it relates to professional instances, I use it to facilitate workshops. Okay, reflect on a time when streaming content helped you reach your goals or engage with others. So I recently had a opportunity to facilitate a workshop, and not only did I facilitate it using Zoom in order to stream, I was in a room with other participants, and it allowed me to engage with them in a hybrid format. And I say this is important because not only were they presented with the same information as those who were online, but they were also able to grab links and go to sites and actively engage with prompt engineering by putting in their own examples into their chat GPT or into their Gemini or into Claude, whichever platform they were using, so that they could work along with me live and not have to wait until the end of the session or have to wait for a specific time to actually engage in the content of the workshop, to be actually to perform and do those things. And so that streaming allowed me to not only help facilitate the workshop for those who were online, but as well as those who were in person because they had the same access as those online. And that meant access to what was happening in the workshop, as well as access to the different platforms and tools that they needed to use in order to engage fully in the workshop. And so a hybrid format works well for me when facilitating a workshop, streaming a workshop, as well as a completely online format. What are the advantages and challenges of using streaming platforms for promoting ideas, products, or personal branding? Well, I'll start with the advantages. The advantages I talked about in the last two prompts. So being able to get information out, being able to connect with participants, having the time and space for them to ask questions and for me to respond to them, as well as to drop live examples, whether it's me demonstrating them or giving them instructions on how to carry it out on their own. So that is an advantage. One of the challenges is that sometimes people watch and they don't engage. And if they're watching and not engaging, I'm not able to pinpoint whether they don't have an issue with the material. I'm not able to gauge whether they have a question. I'm not able to gauge whether the information is being provided in a coherent fashion. I'm not able to gauge like what's going on in their thought processes and what they think and whether or not they're able to complete the task without any hiccups or without any challenges. And so if someone's not engaging, then it becomes hard for me to determine what's working and what's not working. And what can happen is that those who are engaging, their interests, their ideas, their questions, they will be answered, which is good. And another good thing is that sometimes the people who are engaging have similar questions or concerns or thought processes as those who aren't speaking up. So that's good when there are people who engage, and hopefully it covers some other people. And then the challenges are when I'm not able to gauge what's going on or what's happening. Okay, so when we're talking about promoting ideas, that goes for that. When it comes to a product, my product that I readily have available for everyone to take a look at and make use of is the Black-Liberation.Tech open educational resource. So that includes the website as well as the podcast. So unless I hear feedback from people, like for example, someone said, "Oh, it's just like you said on X, Y, and Z, this, that, and the third." If she did not say anything, I would not have known that she actually engaged with it. So even if I look at my analytics, it's not going to give me the name of the person, but until someone says something to me directly, leaves a comment, so please leave a comment wherever possible, I'm not able to gauge how the product is serving others. And so that can be a challenge. Now, personal branding. With personal branding, I think that streaming helps because people are able to see how I present myself as a professional. They're also able to see some of my artwork as it relates to the logos and things that I have drawn, and they get a glimpse at my personality. So that is definitely a bonus. As far as the challenge is concerned with personal branding, I would say getting to the point where my personal brand is well known. I would say that that's a challenge. Getting it in front of enough eyeballs that someone can say, "Oh, I know Black-Liberation.Tech," without me being the one to introduce it to them or to be the face or the be the first point of contact, but for someone to see the brand and then recognize it immediately for themselves, as opposed to my face being connected directly with it, and therefore they know, "Oh, that's Renee." So I would count that somewhat as a challenge. How can you enhance your streaming presence to make it more engaging and impactful? I can enhance my streaming presence by scheduling well in advance, let's say a month, opportunities for me to stream Black-Liberation.Tech. When I do a workshop, that's planned well in advance. The advertisement gets out, and I'm able to gauge on participation based on those who complete pre-workshop surveys. I'm able to gauge how things went as a result of their questions and their comments and reflections and feedback that they provide during and at the end of the session, as well as exit surveys. Now, for Black-Liberation.Tech, I can enhance my streaming presence by planning ahead and letting people know through my social media platforms as well as my podcast to say, "Hey, I'm going to be streaming live. Make sure that you sign up for Patreon and go to patreon.com/Black-Liberation.Tech and sign up to be a Patreon member so you can receive notification of the next time I'm streaming live so you can join in on the conversation, ask your questions, get responses from me, perhaps share your experience and allow us to learn from each other." So that's how I can enhance my streaming presence to make it more engaging by giving people more notice and directing them to where they can go to engage, specifically patreon.com/Black-Liberation.Tech. All right, now the next prompt is the guiding questions for online search. And so I've looked that up, but I'll just give it a read. Look for Latinas, Afro-Latinas, and Black women in media or business who excel in using streaming platforms to build audiences. How do they use digital tools for live streaming effectively? All right, so once again, I did pre-work for this. And so what we can do is head on over to the responses that I received when I did the Google search with the AI feature and take a look at the responses that came up. Once again, this is for educational purposes. I'm giving it to you as a homework assignment to actually verify and then trust the information. I'm just reading the information as is, so you will know what I received as responses. Okay, so Latina, Afro-Latina, and Black women in media and business successfully leverage streaming platforms by creating authentic, culturally relevant content and actively cultivating niche supportive communities. Their effective use of digital tools involves cross-platform engagement, community building, and in some cases, creating their own dedicated platforms to combat industry disparities. Very interesting. All right, key individuals. Now, remember I said verifying then trust? I can tell you now. Jackie Ina's last name is not Ina anymore. It is Asamoah. So I will respect her by saying Jackie Asamoah. And I'm going to ask for you to verify the remaining information here and then trust. Okay, a prominent YouTuber and beauty entrepreneur who uses her channel for makeup tutorials and product reviews while also leveraging her platform to call out racial disparities in beauty industry and advocate for greater inclusivity. Shameless Maya Washington, an actor and creative producer who built a massive YouTube following with a 35-day self-promotion challenge that sparked the Be Shameless movement. Okay. She offers tech tutorials and inspirational content, diversifying across YouTube, brand collaborations, Google Store, Target, and creative projects. All right. Next, we have Janelle Martinez, the founder of Ain't I a Latina, a digital platform that provides content for and about Afro-Latinas. She leverages social media to highlight underrepresented voices and cultural experiences, building a strong niche community. Monica Veloz, an Afro-Dominican blogger and influencer known as @Monica Style Muse, who uses platforms like Instagram and TikTok to discuss her experiences and provide style inspiration, creating a space for other Afro-Latinas to see themselves represented. Mira Mira, a successful Twitch streamer who launched the Noir Network to address pay disparities affecting Black creators. Her influence extends beyond streaming to developing new platforms for Black women to monetize their content fairly. Quintina Brunson. Before her broadcast success with Avid Elementary, she was a writer and creator on digital platforms using her unique voice and talent to build an initial audience that translated into mainstream media opportunities. All right, so next, they provide effective use of digital tools for live streaming and audience building. These creators employ specific strategies to maximize the effectiveness of their digital tools, authenticity, and cultural relevance. They prioritize creating content that reflects their unique experiences and identities, which builds strong connections and trust with an audience seeking authentic representation not found in traditional media. Community building and safe spaces. Many, particularly in gaming like Noodle and Ebonix, actively moderate and cultivate inclusive communities to counteract toxic environments, misogyny. This dedicated engagement fosters a loyal, safe space for viewers. Diversification across platforms. Rather than relying solely on one platform, they diversify their presence across YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, podcasts, and even their own website/networks, like the BW, the first streaming app created by and for Black women. This reach allows them to connect with different audience segments. Direct interaction. Live streaming tools on platforms like Twitch and YouTube allow for real-time engagement through chat sessions and Q&As, transforming passive consumption into interactive experiences. Monetization and brand partnership. By building strong personal brands and large audiences, they leverage data on their highly engaged demographics to secure significant brand partnerships with major companies like Nike or Sephora and advocate for fair compensation. Content as advocacy. Their content often goes beyond entertainment to include professional advice, political commentary, and social justice advocacy, using their influence to drive conversations about representation and equity. All right, now we are going to move on to the final reflect and write segment for this lesson. The last one that I chose was teaching. And so that's an interaction that kind of doubles over in terms of what I've said already as it relates to facilitating workshops. But let's go ahead and take a look at these questions to see how I can answer them differently as it relates to teaching specifically. Okay. How do you use digital tools to teach others? For example, creating tutorials, conducting webinars, or sharing knowledge through blogs. Okay, so as far as conducting webinars are concerned, that's going to double over with the workshops that I facilitate. As it relates to creating tutorials, if I need to create a job aid or a manual, or if I need to create something that's going to show somebody how to go through a series of steps, I often use screenshots and include brief phrasing as far as what to click next, what to expect, what happens first, second, third. And you can also see my teaching on Black-Liberation.Tech. That's Black-Liberation.Tech, the open educational resource that includes lessons, structured lessons based on my background as an educator. And that is a digital tool that I use to help teach others. And I do that through my podcast, not only by telling my story and sharing my story, but demonstrating how to get information across using an OER, and in this case, Black-Liberation.Tech. As far as blogs are concerned, that was one of the points that I referred to early on in the Black-Liberation.Tech podcast. I would actually read my blog posts from when I was in school to share my experiences, which often were points of learning, either for myself or for my nieces, things that I wanted to share with my nieces. I would send them text messages and check in on them, specifically the one who went to Morgan State and graduated and went on to UPenn. I would check in with her as it related to how progress was coming along with school and share nuggets with her as far as different things that I did to help myself along the way and hopefully would help her as well. And so, with that being said, I will say that I am a very good pen pal. And when I say pen pal, I mean text messaging. So I do have a few mentees, and one of my mentees graduated yesterday with her PhD in instructional technology from Georgia State University. I am very proud of Dr. Sierra Gillum. And so, one of the ways that I would keep in contact with her would be text messages. And I would also use Zoom to do video calls to check in with her to see how her progress was coming along with my other mentees. I found that to be easy for me because that meant I could check on them at any time. And it did not require me to find time to meet them in person, but I could readily meet them online, whether it was me sitting at my computer, me on my phone, whether that's a text message, a phone call, or a Zoom call. And so that allowed for a level of connection and relationship building to take place that would be more difficult if it relied on me solely meeting them in person to do the mentoring. When I came through, my mentor and I, we met once a semester for 7 years in person. And then everything in between would either be emails or text messages. And I found that to work. And so after 2020, virtual became even more enmeshed in what it was that I did in terms of communicating with people. And so I kind of stuck with it. And I found myself being able to mentor more and do more as a result than if it relied on me being in person and actually finding time to be in person. And so, yeah, that's how I have used digital tools to teach others. Now, reflect on a time when teaching others through digital platforms had a positive impact. What made your teaching effective? I would say that the digital teaching, I did teach online as an instructor of a basic computing skills course. So that course was asynchronous. It was done on my own time. And so that was great because it allowed me to respond in a timely fashion. My students could expect to hear from me within 24 to 48 hours during the week. And I was very responsive and I was able to help people troubleshoot through their homework and questions that they had as they worked through it. And it didn't take us having to set up a meeting. All it required was an email. All it required was, yeah, all it required was an email to say, hey, I'm having an issue, Professor Jordan, with this. Can you help me with X, Y, and Z? Now, also as a result of teaching that course, because everybody had to submit things in a digital platform, I was able to go through and grade and see how students were performing in the class, and I provided them with feedback. And whenever students did an outstanding job, something that went above and beyond their requirements, I made notes on that. I made notes about it on their actual assignments in the learning management system, and I would make an additional note. So I kept my grades online in the learning management system, but I also had a rubric that I used where I kept track of the scoring of student assignments and the feedback that I provided to them. And so once I saw that a student got three or more like outstanding assignments, I would send them an email and say, hey, you know what? I've noticed that you are going above and beyond on these assignments. Your work is exceptional, it is outstanding. And if you keep it up, there's a good chance that I'll write you a letter of recommendation. Would you prefer that letter of recommendation be for a job or graduate school, or would you like a letter of recognition where I just recognize the outstanding work that you are doing in the course? And so students would be like, oh, why, thanks. I am looking for a job. If you could think about writing me a letter of recommendation for a job, or I am applying to graduate school. If you could please think about how you could write a letter of recommendation for me for graduate school, that would be great. I did receive a note from someone said, I'm not really looking for a job or going to graduate school right now. So, a letter of appreciation would be fine. And so I would do that. And then before the end of the semester, because that's when people need things, before you close out for the semester and you're done with the class and I put everything away and move on to the next thing, I would write letters of recommendation. And as a result, some students, not all, even if some students received, let's say, full credit for an assignment, that didn't mean that they were going to get a letter of recommendation. It was those who clearly went above and beyond and allowed their individual unique skills and abilities and creativity to shine through that would cause me to take notice and want to write them a letter of recommendation. And so I was able to write letters of recommendations for jobs at graduate school. And I do remember this one time where I wrote just a letter of appreciation for a student who said that they didn't need a letter of recommendation for school or for a job at this time. And do you know that young lady wrote me back and thanked me and said, you know what, this was right on time. I was just doubting myself. Things weren't going well. And I was feeling down. And when I got your letter, it was right on time. It allowed me to have a good moment. And so that was something positive that came about. And what made my teaching effective was that I provided feedback across the board. it wasn't just to the people who were doing outstanding, it was also for those who were experiencing challenges. And so, if I also noticed that students were experiencing challenges, and I saw that they experienced challenges more than once, so if this is your second time experiencing the challenge, I will reach out to them as well and send them an email and say, hey, I noticed that, you've been experiencing a challenge with this assignment and this assignment. Is everything okay? Do you need assistance? What do you need to do to get back on track? Please respond to this message as soon as possible. So, just like I made it an important task or a high priority for me to get to those who were doing outstanding, I also made it a high priority to get to those who were experiencing challenges. And that's what made my teaching effective because I not only rewarded those who were doing well, but I also extended myself to those who were experiencing challenges so that they could have a chance to turn things around before it went too far. And they missed out on points that they would not be able to regain because I was not allowing them to redo the work without a valid excuse, but give them a chance to say, oh, you know what? I forgot. Oh, you know what? I did miss that. You know what? I did have an emergency and I didn't say anything. And I apologize. I'll get right on it. And it allowed them an opportunity to make the necessary changes to do better in my class. And so that is what helped make a difference. How do others teach or share their expertise online in ways that inspire you? I enjoy it when people are able to answer the questions of others that people send in. So if you have questions, please send them in. And what I'm thinking of doing is creating questions based on questions that I have had, questions that I have been asked, as well as questions that go along with the material I have already so that I can have a Q&A session like that as well. So hopefully by asking questions or presenting my audience with questions that I've been presented with and even drafting questions that go along with the material that I have will help others think about their own experiences and say, you know what? I didn't have that exact question, but it's similar. Or that question brings up something else. And hopefully that inspires you to go ahead and ask your questions, whether you send them to me in a DM, whether you send them to me on Patreon, whether you leave them as a comment on the video. And I would love to answer your questions. So feel free to ask or share your experiences so that we can make this more of a back and forth. Okay. What digital tools or platforms could help you improve your ability to teach others online? Well, I think that getting people to engage more with me on Patreon will help. That's a space where I have the ability to facilitate chats. So I'm not necessarily going to do a group me with the open public, but on Patreon, there is a chat where people can hop in and leave their questions and their comments or talk to me. And it doesn't have to be directly connected with a piece of content that I posted. It can be something random. I'm here for the randomness that deals with something that I can help you with in my expertise, that is. And so perhaps that will help. Okay. Now, in terms of teaching or facilitating workshops online, that can also go back to streaming. And so all those good things that I said about what I can do in terms of planning ahead and sharing ahead of opportunities to stream live with me as it relates to Black-Liberation.Tech apply here. Okay, how do you plan to develop your teaching skills to better engage learners in digital spaces? Okay, so one of the things that I can do, I would have to say, based on where my larger audiences are on TikTok, I would need to learn to yap more or to do short stints of yapping, but I would still need at least bullet points to riff from as opposed to going straight off of my head because I like to think about what it is that I'm about to say before saying it. And then also have some kind of format so that when I go to edit things myself, I'm not making it hard on myself to do the editing of my yapping. Okay, now guided questions for online search. Look for Latinas, Afro-Latinas, and Black women educators or professionals in tech who use digital tools to teach effectively. What platforms or strategies do they use to engage their audiences? All right, so let's take a look at my search results. All right, so once again, these are the search results from Google when I drop that question in. Once again, your search engine results are going to depend upon what you look for on a regular basis in combination to whatever you put in. So if you put the same exact thing in as me, it might not come out to be the same. And one of the things that I'm noticing is that Google likes to tell me about the same people over and over again. So let's see who is new. I'm going to go ahead and read through the information that I received from my search results. Once again, please verify and then trust. So let's take a look at my search results. Latinas, Afro-Latinas, and Black women educators and professionals in tech leverage a variety of digital platforms and culturally responsive strategies to teach effectively and engage their audiences, key individuals, and organizations. Kimberly Bryant, founder of Black Girls Code, focuses on early tech education for youth using workshops and summer camps to teach skills like robotics, game design, and mobile app development. Dr. Timnit Gebru, founder of DAIR Institute, so DARE Institute, and co-founder of Black in AI, uses her platform for independent AI research and advocacy, educating the community on AI ethics and the impact on marginalized groups. Next, we have Adriana Gascone, founder and CEO of Girls in Tech. Her global nonprofit uses various initiatives to end gender inequity in high tech industries, providing a system of support and education for women entering STEM. Dr. Lakeisha Odlum, assistant professor of CUNY Queens College. Her research and teaching focuses on the intersection of racial and digital literacies, employing platforms to discuss diversifying the teaching profession and the education of Black girls. Esther Olutande, founder of Esther Speaks. Her platform focuses on business analysis and career clarity, using digital tools to provide mindset support and culturally relevant content for Black women career changers. Rocio Mendina Van Nerop, co-founder, president, and CEO of Latinas in Tech. The organization uses a variety of platforms to empower and connect Latinas in the tech industry, offering education and upskilling opportunities. Platforms and tools utilized. Virtual meeting platforms. Tools like Zoom and Microsoft Teams are used for virtual classrooms, professional development, and collaboration, particularly leveraging features like breakout rooms for group activities. Online learning platforms. Educators use platforms such as Coursera, edX, and Code Academy to offer formal courses and vocational training. Educational apps and software. Khan Academy, Duolingo, Quizlet, and Kahoot are incorporated to support literacy, numeracy, and make learning engaging through gamification. Online communities and social media. LinkedIn, Facebook groups, and other forums serve as spaces for networking, mentorship, cultural exchange, and sharing work and opportunities. AI and data-driven platforms. Some tech leaders leverage AI for specific functions, such as AI PI for hiring process, and Typica, or for data-driven lesson plans that embed subjects within culturally responsive contexts. Custom/proprietary platforms. Organizations often build their own platforms like the Unidos Digital Skills for Life program, which uses a specific culturally and linguistically competent curriculum available in English and Spanish. Engagement strategies. Culturally relevant pedagogy. This is a primary strategy centering students' backgrounds and lived experiences to enhance engagement, persistence, and success. This includes allowing students to choose topics relevant to their communities, community building and mentorship, fostering strong online and offline communities, and formal mentorship programs help combat feelings of isolation often faced by women of color in tech, providing vital support systems. Hands-on, project-based learning. Educators use workshops, hackathons, and project teams where participants create tangible products, for example, building a mobile app or working in a gaming environment that mirrors workplace scenarios. Voice and choice, providing students with a say in the type of projects they create or topics they explore, helps foster ownership and intrinsic motivation. Focus on language skills. For multilingual learners, using visuals and incorporating the native language as a support mechanism are common strategies. Digital storytelling. Utilizing digital storytelling methods has been found to be highly acceptable and effective in engaging Black adults in learning and health interventions. Accessibility. Initiatives often focus on making education accessible by meeting people where they are, including offering 24/7 tutoring support, flexible working options, and clear career development pathways. So that's the end of that search. All right, so now that's the end of the Reflect and Write section of the lesson that will help me create my project plan for my social media campaign. And hopefully, you've gone through the Write and Reflect questions that are appropriate for your project, or even thought about how you would answer those questions that I just answered. Now, next time, we are going to take a look at creating your project plan. And so that's going to include defining the project goals, research and discovery, digital tools and platforms, and connecting with experts. So, with all that being said, thank you once again for joining me for another episode of the Black-Liberation.Tech Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Renee Jordan. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and share, rate, and review the podcast to help it become more discoverable. And until next time, take care. Bye bye.